Welcome to Season 2 of the Crypto Pulse podcast, your ultimate guide to the world of crypto, Bitcoin, and world economics. We're here to guide you through the crypto universe with thought-provoking topics, in-depth knowledge, and information to help you make informed decisions. We'll also be interviewing some of the best minds in the industry, such as CEOs of crypto projects, traders, economists, authors, and development teams from around the globe. And now for the episode.
This episode is brought to you by Yield app and daily compounding interest on your digital assets with its intuitive web platform and their newly launched mobile app, which is available for download on both iOS and Android. Plus, don't forget to refer your friends to earn extra rewards. Visit yield.app for more information. Hello and welcome back to the Crypto Pulse podcast for another one of our epic guest interviews. Today we'll be talking with Anita Posch, a Bitcoin advocate, author, podcast host, and founder of the non-profit charity Bitcoin for Fairness. And she's also a current board member for Bitcoin Austria. It was incredible to talk with her about her work and her passion for all things Bitcoin. I hope you enjoy the interview. First question I want to ask you is about how you started your journey in crypto. So how did you first find out about it, and what's your journey in the space been like since you've discovered the technology?
Yeah, so 2017 until now, there has been a lot of things happening in the space. I got into the space because I always was interested in technology, like the internet. When it came along, I decided, okay, I'm changing my job. I change everything. I now want to be a web designer. I want to do something with the internet. This is going to be big. And in 2016, I decided, so I've done enough, like in the e-commerce space, and I want to do something new, like reinvent myself. And I was searching for something that made sense, not only buying stuff on the internet or doing programming websites to buy stuff. And then I found Bitcoin again, because in 2011 already I saw it somewhere, but I thought I was misled. I thought it's something like a new PayPal, and I thought nobody needs another PayPal. We've solved.
You already have one.
Exactly. We solved the problem of spending money on the internet. In 2017, I was listening to a talk about Bitcoin and open blockchains and how they can revolutionize the world and also the societal and humanitarian impact they could have. And this was basically my, when it clicked, and I thought, oh, wow, that's interesting. So basically my interest in the well-being of people and communities that came from also my education as an urban planner, which was my first education actually. And the connection to the internet and being able to send money frictionless over the internet, which possibilities we will have in the future from that was fascinating to me. And so I started educating myself. I mean, I knew nobody else basically. And I did some open free educational courses on the University of Nicosia and things like that, and decided I want to work in this space. I want to be self-employed again, and this is a possibility for me to take the knowledge and my experiences I had so far from my life and my work experiences, to take it further and to start educating other people about the possibilities of Bitcoin. So that's basically how I got in.
It's an amazing story, and Anita, you do so much in the Bitcoin space. I know that you're a member of the board of Bitcoin in Austria, and you've recently written a book. So the author of the book "Learn Bitcoin," which is excellent, by the way. We've sort of read it this side. I wanted to kind of ask you, what is it that inspired you to sort of take the knowledge that you have about Bitcoin and to share that with the world? I mean, obviously there's so much education that needs to happen around Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain, but what is it for you that sort of drives you to want to do that?
Basically, up until that moment, I never found a book that brought together the basic knowledge of Bitcoin. So why do we need it? What is it? In a way that everyone can understand. And secondly, in the second part of the book, I speak about like wallet recommendations, self-custody, how important self-custody is, and what the difference is in between your Bitcoin on an exchange and having your own private keys, and all these kinds of things. And there was no such thing on the market I didn't know of. And also, it was for me a sort of a process to write down everything I've learned and everything I know about Bitcoin. And I also learned a lot again in writing it, because if you want to educate or share your knowledge on something or write a book about something, you need to know your stuff. And so
Right.
it was on the one hand a learning effect for me too, and providing learning materials or reading materials for people who are new and want some basic understanding, and also security or safety tips and things like that, so that they don't get scammed or lose their keys and all these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a Roman philosopher that said the best way to learn is to teach, right? And there's no better way to teach than writing a book. So I also, just touching on the point of education, I know you also do some amazing work through your nonprofit Bitcoin for Fairness, and you educate people in emerging countries about Bitcoin to help with financial sovereignty. I mean, you've done just so much in this space. I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. Like, what was the inspiration for setting up the nonprofit?
Yeah, so basically, all started with my general interest in Bitcoin, because the fact that it can empower people globally, but especially in emerging countries, in countries where you have human rights violations, you have dictatorships, authoritarian regimes. I mean, 54% people of the global population live in countries like that. And for them, Bitcoin is much more important than for us, actually. Because we have a working banking system. We live in a fairly healthy democracy. Our lives are relatively secure. But the people there, they really have quite some different living situations. Like I was 2 times, I visited Zimbabwe, and the people there, they really need to cover their basic daily needs every day, again and again. And the government is stealing from them. And like with a money like Bitcoin, where you hold your own keys, which is like digital cash, that you are the only person that can send it or somewhere or do something with it. And so basically your government can't steal from you. And so the importance for me of Bitcoin is mainly in these emerging countries. And like I started in 2017 with Bitcoin. In 2018, I started my podcast. And I was one of the first Bitcoin podcasters who invited people from African countries to speak about Bitcoin adoption in their countries and the use cases for Bitcoin in their countries. And so I always was interested in spreading the word about how Bitcoin is or can be a tool for human rights, basically. And from that on, I also realized, okay, but if I'm speaking about Bitcoin as a human rights tool, most people are not that interested in that topic, sadly. They rather listen to what the next coin is and where they can make their next profit and things like that, and discuss the price of Bitcoin and if it's digital gold or not. But this is something that has nothing to do with the life realities of these people. And I thought, okay, I think I need to change my model of doing my work. And I also wanted to broaden this platform, that's not only me who's doing podcasts and going to Zimbabwe, but I wanted to leave something in the way that I share my knowledge with the people who want to know about it, and sow some seeds, like spreading knowledge, but then like being a catalyst, connecting people from Africa who are interested in Bitcoin to the Western Bitcoin communities, opening up possibilities for them. I incentivized basically with Bitcoin for Fairness the first Bitcoin-only meetups in Zimbabwe and in Zambia, which is great. I was in South Africa visiting a Bitcoin circular economy in a township, which is a fascinating way to educate people on the one hand about Bitcoin and also bring opportunities for them for the future. And so it went, actually, it was quite a natural evolution of the work I do in the space to find this non-profit model where I ask companies for sponsorships or also individuals for their donations if they like my work. So it's a bigger platform where we can, like, together with volunteers and also people in Africa, build sustainable communities.
I think it's such important work. I think you're absolutely right. So much of what Bitcoin can do globally gets ignored. You know, we get people that talk about price action, and crypto sort of tends to be lumped into the same sector when actually Bitcoin as a sort of a decentralized monetary system, has the power to solve so many problems.
That was the original idea, wasn't it? With the Bitcoin white paper was a peer-to-peer
Absolutely.
money, and of course there was the whole contention with, the fork in, what was it, 2017, and Bitcoin Cash being the cash, and we won't go into all of that because I think that whole thing was a bit ridiculous.
It is.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, I also think that Bitcoin is money that wants to be spent and used. Of course, it's also a speculation tool. It's something quite new. We never had that. You have an asset that can be like gold, digital gold, but on the other hand, you can use it and very efficient and. There are so many topics we could talk about in that regard. But I'm one of the proponents saying that money wants to be spent, and I can only have sustainable adoption in these countries if people really use it, because they have the use they need to use it. They don't have the money to save anyhow. So
How do you find that people receive that message? Because it's quite a sort of the re-education piece is obviously important, but I imagine it's tough. Do you find that people in these developing countries are open to hearing about the kind of philosophy and the technology, or is it tough?
It depends. So the first question always is Bitcoin not a scam? Because I think 80-90% of people know someone who has been scammed or have been scammed themselves. And even if I explain it like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that it's an open technology, it's a protocol, everyone can use it without ID and without a bank account and things like that, they are still skeptical. And the next question is, and what do you want to sell me now? And I say, no, I don't want to sell anything. I'm just here to share my knowledge. But then as soon as they understand the basic properties and what it can do for them, like it's not censorable. Your government can't take it away from you. They can't steal from you. You can send it everywhere. Your brother, your family from the UK can send it back home to you in your country. You can then exchange it immediately in person to US dollars or to local currency because most of them need it. And so they are very keen on learning then. But I have to say that in general, of course, education, I mean, it depends if you're in a city, if you're in a million people city with high educational standards, or if you're more on the countryside. So the educational level is also in general lower than here, I would say. So sure. I always adapt my content to the people, to the country, and to their use cases.
So I have some questions. I have so many questions actually in my head. But let me pick one. I know, Ben, you've probably got loads on the tip of your tongue as well. So if you speak to like you mentioned Zambia, so you go to somewhere in Zambia, you introduce Bitcoin to people. How do they start using it on a practical level, and how is it used in their society, and how are they also able to transfer that Bitcoin into like their local currency because I'm guessing not everywhere everywhere's going to start accepting it. So how do you create that sort of that circular economy or that introduction?
Yeah, basically you start with the properties of Bitcoin and what the most important security measures are, like how to self-custody your coins, how to send and receive. So at first I'm always doing more like an introductory talk about Bitcoin, and then you find people who are really interested, who want to start learning more. And with those, I in general do a follow-up workshop where we install a Bitcoin and Lightning wallet, where I show them how to send and receive Bitcoin and how to store it safely. In Zambia, for instance, there is not a lot of Bitcoin adoption. So people don't know what it is. Even educated people don't know what it is. And there is now one exchange in Zambia where you can exchange Bitcoin to local currency and vice versa. It's like exchanges that we know. But there are also funny things that we don't know because we don't need that or we don't have that. There are WhatsApp groups where people are basically human escrow agents. So I needed to exchange Bitcoin to the local currency. And one of my contacts there said, okay, he's going to do that for me. And he vouched for me that I'm going to send the Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address. And the guy, the other partner then brought the money to me. So there are a lot of groups on the ground. It's real peer-to-peer adoption. So, and I find that fascinating, and I also want to foster that peer-to-peer adoption because I think it's sustainable and it also doesn't hurt your privacy. And I'm a proponent also, I say, keep the unbanked unbanked. We don't need to build a new banking infrastructure on top of Bitcoin because the idea of Bitcoin is to be money for the people and you can freely exchange it. And so, that's basically the way. And then I try to incentivize or give them the idea to found a WhatsApp group that's Bitcoin only to keep the scammers out. So the people who meet at my talk, I say to them, hey, write down a list of numbers if you want to go into this group. You know those people. You can trust them now because trust, I think, is the most important thing next to education. Trust the technology and trust the people you deal with. We always say Bitcoin is trustless. Yes, on the protocol level, but in between people, since there are so many scams, you still need to have some kind of trust. So that's basically how it goes. And speaking of a circular Bitcoin economy, there it's very, very important to have people on the ground who live there, who start sharing their knowledge with the people, with others, and then say, like in Bitcoin Ekasi, for instance, there's a guy who lives in Mossel Bay. He's called Herman, and he got into Bitcoin a few years ago. And he has a surf school, and he is giving free surf lessons to children from the township. He has been doing that for 10 years now. And sometime in between, he heard about Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador. And he thought, why not do the same? And he started educating his coaches, his surf coaches, about Bitcoin. And now they have 6 shops in the township that accept Lightning Bitcoin. And so all the coaches get their money in Bitcoin, in Lightning, and then go up to their township where they live and buy stuff for Bitcoin. And
amazing.
And that's so. It's a long process, basically. But if you get everybody in, and also people need to learn, sadly, the market goes down, the price goes down. which can be very hard for them, of course. But they learn also use Lightning Bitcoin for spending. And if you can save something, they then take the maybe 5 or 10 or 20 US dollars worth of Bitcoin and move it on chain onto a hardware wallet. And there they keep it and wait.
So do they convert the Bitcoin into a US stable coin or something? Is that what they're doing?
No. Like in South Africa, everybody is using rand. They don't use the US dollar. But in Zimbabwe, for instance, everybody wants US dollars. So the countries are very different in that. Yes, on the one hand, there is a service called, I think, 9 to 5 or something, where they can send their Bitcoin and exchange it into a South African rand coin, digital rand. And with that, they can go to shops and buy things. Or they buy vouchers on Bitrefill with Bitcoin, and they can top up their phone with it. Or buy other things and stuff in shops that accept vouchers. Yeah.
It's amazing to hear about how other countries are adopting Bitcoin and how it's becoming important in other places other than the US, because I think globally we think about Bitcoin is very US centric, isn't it? When we hear about it, we typically hear about the US dollar price. When we hear about regulation, it's always sort of being led by the States. Anita, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is regulation, because there's a lot of talk about that at the moment, and there's a lot of stuff which is coming through with I think it's the MiCA and the TFR bill in the EU. What's your view on regulation? I mean, do you think this strengthens the case for Bitcoin, or do you think the government should just be leaving it alone?
I'm saying it's privacy invading technology, surveillance technology, and I don't like it at all. Regulation in the way that there is some kind of authority saying, no, this is a scam. You get fined for your scam. You're warning the people of your country about these scams. Yes, I think that would be very important. But this over-regulation, wanting to know where I send my Bitcoin from an exchange to, like I have to leave, like to prove that this is my address. It's not only privacy invasion, it's also, I feel like I'm in China now, So I fear that we will have this over-regulation everywhere, that we also see with banks, Banks are now policing us. And I don't see why banks should be doing that. It's a huge amount of money that's running into this permanent global surveillance of everyone, instead of just focusing on those people or institutions who might launder money. Yeah. Why is it always Deutsche Bank or Credit Suisse or other banks that are fined for money laundering? Yeah. It's always the big ones. And so I think KYC is really dangerous. It's a security hole. We know that data is always breached or stolen from computer systems. And if I know where the holder of Bitcoin lives, because an exchange got hacked and now the address, like where people live who bought Bitcoin, is on the internet, then that's not a good situation.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting point, actually. I'd never thought about it like that, because you're right. We look at the Web 2 space for the last 20 years, and there's been so many high-profile data leaks. Even companies like Facebook via Cambridge Analytica, they lost hundreds of millions of users' data that way. And I agree. If people's Bitcoin holdings were ever attached to something like their address, I mean, it's that's a frightening thought.
There have been some cases in the Bitcoin space too. For instance, Ledger. I think 2 years ago there was the Ledger hack. So they had clients' shipping addresses. I mean, and so the people then they got emails and messages telling them, you pay now this and that, otherwise we come to you and get you, you know. So
we always look at things through the eyes of the West because, you know, we're privileged enough to grow up in a country that's safe, secure, the quality of life's good, we've had good opportunities, all things considered. But when I think you look at this through the eyes of somebody that's maybe living in a totalitarian state, or a state where they're you know, maybe part of who they are isn't accepted socially. Maybe it's their race, their religion, their sexual orientation, and maybe they've supported a group and put some money into a group with their Bitcoin, and the government finds out they've supported that, and they you know, their lives can be at risk. And I've heard stories of that, not necessarily with Bitcoin, but other people supporting organizations that the government don't agree with. So where you've made me really think that actually having proper KYC in developing countries is a really, really bad idea. It's very dangerous for people.
Yeah, definitely. It's look, for me, Bitcoin supports freedom of speech because, as you just said, if you support a political party or the opposition or a lesbian and gay group or whatever, and in your country you don't have any rights, like there are countries in Africa where you still get fined or put in prison if you're a gay guy or something like that. Yeah,
Right.
so they can find out everything about you if they trace back your money or trace your money. And so that's a reason for me. So basically, how you spend your money is speech, because you show your preferences. And if the government can trace that back, they can put you in jail for it. So it's really very dangerous. And then on the other hand, Bitcoin is a tool for freedom fighters. I've just been at the Oslo Freedom Forum, and there was a special track about Bitcoin education for human rights activists. And there have been, I don't know how many human rights activists who already told us the stories of how Bitcoin has helped them to fight their government. And so for me, it sounds absurd maybe for people who are listening to that, but Bitcoin, if you use Bitcoin, if you buy and hold Bitcoin, if you use Bitcoin, you're supporting freedom fighters and human rights activists. And that's for me what makes the most sense for me, or the most important use case for Bitcoin for me.
Yeah, I suppose the problem that comes with that is that when you're supporting people in, you know, countries where they're fighting their governments or there are totalitarian regimes, is that unfortunately at the moment, without mass Bitcoin adoption, you know, people need fiat off-ramps. They need to be able to convert that back into some kind of local currency. I think as adoption spreads and one Bitcoin becomes one Bitcoin and everybody agrees that it's it's a means of value exchange, and until then, I suppose the biggest problem is that they have to spend it somehow or turn it into money.
Yeah, I mean, it is money, but you're right. They need to spend it in their own country. And as long as there is no adoption in the way of a circular economy, then they can't spend it. But it's really very easy to change Bitcoin to US dollars on the ground, peer-to-peer, and I mean really peer-to-peer without an exchange in these countries. And I think that's the way to go, because then you also don't need KYC for that, you know?
Sure.
And there are also new technologies coming in Lightning that will enable stable coins on top of Lightning. So basically, you could receive USDT or USDC as a stable coin, but then you can pay someone else in Bitcoin without even knowing that you did that at the moment.
Yes.
And I think these are fascinating technologies that will help us in the future getting more people to use Bitcoin and to make it more easy for them to spend it then also locally.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how Bitcoin plays a part in global affairs as it sort of spreads. Anita, I could stay on these topics all day, but I'd love to know a little bit more about you because I know you're super busy. What are your plans for the sort of the rest of 2022 and beyond? Is there anything interesting happening with the nonprofit or the podcast?
Yeah, so with Bitcoin for Fairness, there's a lot planned. Actually, I've been to, say, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa already this year. And I'm starting to travel again in August, September. Then I'm visiting some conferences first in Europe. And then in September, I will go back to Zimbabwe to meet with the people I'm in contact and that also work basically for Bitcoin for Fairness. So we pay them in Bitcoin and they contribute to the website and things like that. And I'm also looking very much forward to see the first Bitcoin mining site in Zimbabwe, powered by solar. Yes, that's also that's also something that was starting out from my visit. Like I was connecting people to each other, and so now we've got the first Bitcoin miners in Zimbabwe, and I want to visit the place, and I'm also working on getting a Blockstream satellite into the country to this mining site, because as you maybe know, in Zimbabwe, the government really sometimes turns off the internet. So you need reliable internet and reliable sending of Bitcoin blocks to the ground to be able to mine. And so we want to set that up there too, together with Blockstream, and I'm very, very excited about that. And then after Zimbabwe, I might be going to the US to moderate the panel at the conference. But if that doesn't happen, I will go to Brazil. My book is being translated to Portuguese at the moment, and we will then release it and publish it in Brazil. I also want to meet with Bitcoiners there, and we'll see, do another talk or workshop. And from there, I will go to Argentina. There's La BitConf, which is the first and biggest Bitcoin conference in South America. And then in December, there is the first Bitcoin-only African conference in Ghana. And from Ghana, I will go to Nigeria and do some sort of a campus tour and try to meet with Bitcoiners there. Nigeria is one of the countries with the highest adoption of Bitcoin. So it's very interesting. And last but not least, at the end of the year, I will go back to South Africa and stay there over Christmas and stuff and meet people again that I met this year.
When will you find time to sleep?
I don't know. I really hope. I know it's a lot. It sounds huge. I don't know how I will manage. Maybe I will change the plan. It's just...
It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, it's amazing work.
Thank you.
So 2 questions is like, how are you managing to fund all this? Is this purely through donations? And then my follow-up question to that is like, what really drives you to do all of this? Because you're doing a lot and you're putting a lot of people probably before yourself in some ways. And I know it's fulfilling and it's a passion for you. So they're my 2 questions, I think.
I changed my model of income basically from podcast sponsorships because I saw with this human rights aspect, I don't get so many listeners. So I switched. I thought, maybe a donation or a community approach would be better, to have my own community, like on Patreon. And so I started with Bitcoin for Fairness at the end of last year and thought, I'm going into donations. So it's in part individual donors who support Bitcoin for Fairness, and it's companies from the Bitcoin space who think that that I'm doing great work and want to support that. So it's donations and sponsors. That's this. And what drives me, I really also don't know. I think with Bitcoin, I found something that really makes sense to me. And I found something where I really can contribute to the greater good. Everything I've done up until now was driven by me wanting to be independent and being self-employed. I had the interest in the internet and this free communication, and I wanted to be a part of it. But I always was looking for the next thing, But now with Bitcoin, I have the feeling that I really can help people who are some sort of forgotten or disadvantaged or don't have the same chances or others. if they get into Bitcoin earlier than others, then they will have more opportunities for that. Yeah, so they will be better off in the end. And like going to these emerging countries for me is a little bit like supporting them in reversing this colonial, stealing, it's a historic reparation in a way. And that's the reason why I'm so interested in sharing my knowledge with individuals in these countries. And I think the fairness aspect is really what drives me, like this openness that nobody can change it. No country, not even the US or Russia, can change Bitcoin to its advantage. And that's also the reason why I think that Bitcoin is actually the only of all the cryptocurrencies that has the possibilities to become the neutral, a money standard in a way.
I have to say, Anita, I'm so touched by your story. I mean, what you're doing is just phenomenal. I think I speak for myself and the listeners when I say we're just, so grateful there are people like you doing the work that you're doing, because I think it is important work and it gets forgotten so often. Just a question on your sort of fundraising activities. If any of our listeners are interested in just getting involved in that somehow, how can they support you and where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So with classical fiat money, you can support me on Patreon under my name, Anita Posch. Then if you have some Bitcoin or Lightning and you want to share it with our work, then you can go to bffbtc.org. That's Bitcoin for Fairness, BTC, Bitcoin in short. And there is a donation page. We also have a crowdfunding campaign running on a website called giza.fund, which is a Lightning-only crowdfunding site like Kickstarter.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Great. That sounds good.
Yeah, that's a great one too. And that's basically the two possibilities. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, for anyone that's listening now, we've put the links in the show notes, so feel free to go down, click, we would urge you to support Anita in this amazing work. I don't know if you have any more questions, Kevin, do you?
I have lots, but I think what I'd like to do
I could keep you here forever.
is maybe you'd like to come back on the show in like 3 to 6 months' time. We'd like to just catch up with you.
If you have the time.
Yeah, if you can fit us in your busy schedule, because, we want to support what you're doing and it's important. And, I, for one, forget about some of this stuff. Sometimes when we're doing our regular shows, we do look this through the eyes of the West and through, and there's nothing wrong with that because we're all contributing to this whole ecosystem. But I think we just have to be aware that people are using Bitcoin as a lifeline, as a tool, and that's really, really important. And we should never lose sight of that. So, yeah, I think that's probably all from me. But maybe you'd like to come back in 3 to 6 months when you're able to,
yes,
and you're not traveling.
I will make place for that because I really enjoyed this discussion, and I think you understand the importance of it, and I'm happy to be able to share with you my experiences then that I've done, the new countries I visited and the new people I met and all these kinds of things. And thank you very much for that.
Yeah, well, we look forward to hearing some of your adventures in a few months' time. Anita, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having a conversation with you today, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you very much, Ben and Kevin, and thanks. Have a good day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could leave a review wherever you're listening. This really does help and allows other people to find us online. You can keep up to date with new releases of the podcast by subscribing and following us on Twitter or Instagram for the latest crypto-related news. Information provided by Crypto Pulse via this podcast, website, social media channels, and any other medium does not constitute financial advice, investment recommendations, or any other type of advice whatsoever. The Crypto Pulse team are not professional financial advisors. Trading and purchasing cryptocurrencies do carry risks, and anybody wishing to partake in such activities should seek professional advice.